1830 waiving special assessments.
Assessments, yes, please.
You want to pull both of those? Can we put them at the end of new business?
We'll just, I don't care. What do we
Let's put 'em at-
just throw it.
I don't know. We've never pulled one before.
So
we can put 'em where we
typically,
want.
unless you have a member present, which we do tonight, so that's why I would recommend having the special assessments first on
Yeah,
your
no,
regular
that's
business.
yeah, that's fine.
But typically, when you pull something from consent, it goes to the end of your
Okay.
agenda.
Fine by me. All right, so that was item E, consider approving the special event permit for the Wright County Fair. And item G, consider resolution 18-30 waiving special assessments, so those will move down to G and H under new business. Well, actually, H and I, whatever,
Mhm.
the end. Whatever it ends up to be alphabetically. All right, any other changes to the agenda?
That's enough.
If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion and a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D, approval of minutes. The minutes of the regular council meeting from October 16th, 2018 were included with your packet. Are there any changes to those? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E, citizens input. Is there anyone here to talk about anything that is not on the agenda? All right, we'll move along. Item F, council committee reports. Does anyone have anything to report?
Parks.
Sure.
We
Go
met
ahead.
last week, and a couple of things that were topic were the considering chickens, moving chickens along.
Considering chickens.
Yeah, considering chickens within the city. And so we had what was it? We had close to 10, probably 10 residents. It was highly informative for the people that know chickens, because I didn't know chickens. I don't think any of us really knew chickens like they did. Because we had discussed possibly up to 4 hens, allowing up to 4 hens. Is that right, Jean? And it moved
Six.
along up to, no, originally.
and then we just-
Originally it was
originally
up to 4.
4, and then
through some
up to 6.
explanation and better understanding, we agreed on 6.
So I'm just curious, what was the explanation to jump from 4 to 6?
Well, the
Number
one
of
resident.
eggs, basically. I mean, you get an egg a day, that's 4 eggs. You know, I mean, and they were.
Yeah, for
That's
people,
I mean, it
barely
seems
one
like-
omelet.
Yeah, I
For
mean.
people that eat a lot of
I guess I
eggs.
had 2 more eggs is half a dozen.
Oh, okay.
and some of the other.
Logical.
Some of the other concerns that came up were some of the verbiage that was discussed was the composting of the waste and not allowing to compost. And we had a better understanding listening to some of the residents that there virtually is no waste, is how it was described to us. You wouldn't know what he said. They work it into the ground pretty much. They're the ultimate composting machine. That's how it was kind of worded. But up to 6, and we have up to, it can be 6 and 3, right? And it would be through a permitting
6 and
process.
3 what?
3 what?
Cats
Three
and
other
dogs.
animals.
Oh,
Yeah, like a traditional domestic animal.
got it.
And it would be like a blanket, I assumed it would be like a blanket permit to where they would come into the city and say, look, we're gonna have chickens. We don't care if you have 1, we don't care if you have 6, but you have to come in here and say, we're gonna have chickens. And then Mike Horn had resigned from Parks, and we have accepted Katie Huff's application,
I
so
think
she's
that's in
joining us.
our
Mhm.
consent agenda, right?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for the report. Anything else, Jason?
Anything to add to that?
We will workshop the topic as well following our meeting tonight
Okay.
and potentially vote on it in December or January.
Okay.
Were there any other animals brought up?
Not
Like
really.
Guinea pigs or something usually in the house, that doesn't bother anybody,
Right, like, did you define domesticated animals?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Well,
we'll
if-
talk about that more in the workshop, but
Oh,
yeah, it includes
okay.
expanded definitions for what is a domestic animal, a non-domestic animal, farm animal, things like that, so it's a lot more clear.
Okay.
There's no wind.
All right. Any other council committee reports? Al, did you have something to share?
What's happening, I just reading the Trailblazer stuff going on and.
Yeah, so hot
So-
off the press, as of about an hour ago, 2 hours ago, we received a proposed resolution that would dissolve Wright County Area Transportation, WCAT.
Oh.
That's the joint powers agreement that about 14 cities are members of that collectively serve as the equivalent of a county as part of Trailblazer. Wright County is transitioning full responsibility and ownership of that on January 1st, 2019. In order to do so, we need to dissolve the joint powers agreement.
Okay.
Universally, we believe this to be a good thing because ultimately that means the county will be picking up the local share. They'll be taking responsibility for that operation. When we entered into WCAT, it was really because we couldn't get that level of participation from Wright County. So it's good news. It's a good thing for us.
Because this would not be just those 12 or 14 cities that are presently in WCAT. It would be countywide, is that correct?
Yeah, countywide.
Yeah.
One of the other issues that we've largely ignored is township population because there's no townships in it. So can you get a ride or not if you're a township resident? Some of those concerns go away. Currently, we're responsible for any sort of local share that's a gap between the MnDOT grant and the total cost of operation. So for example, we actually just
But it's
paid
based on our ridership. within
It
the
is
community.
based on our ridership. I think we got our first invoice that basically covered 15, 16, and 17, and it was, I think, $1,100 or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pennies when you consider what we're getting for 3 years. Well within our budget, but either way, it's a good transition.
So then how do we, I mean, because I feel like WCAT really kind of had this, I mean, they laid this solid groundwork which allowed for all this ridership in Howard Lake and the surrounding communities or in all the member communities. Now with the county taking over, we don't really get a say, correct? And
Not really. So what they're doing, they're basically establishing a committee of the county commissioners, similar to how you have working committees. And within this, there's going to be a transit advisory commission. That commission will have, I think they're proposing 9 members total, 2 of which will be county commissioners. 3 or 4 of them will be the top riding communities, like the folks with the most rides. And the balance of whoever wants to participate beyond that would serve the last 3 or 4 seats. So it's meant to have the diverse representation from the county. And with that, that's where we would basically have our formal input as to service design, increased routes, that sort of thing.
okay. Just as long as they don't forget about us, like they.
I made the same comment, yeah, agreed.
Except they don't have routes.
They have a couple defined routes,
Mhm.
contract routes primarily, but for the most part it is dial a ride where you pick up the phone,
Yeah.
get a ride.
It's kind of like calling a taxi,
Yeah.
big taxi.
All right, anything else? All right, we will move along then. Department reports, we have the Howard Lake Wine and Spirits financials that were in our package. Do you want to share anything about those, or are they just for information?
I think the note that I'll mention with that is as we go through the larger store reset, we're working with Jason, Buffalo Wine and Spirits, on updating how and what we order. So for example, the first phase of that, he had ultimately ordered what we believe would get us through 12/31. The thing that we've actually been doing the last week or two is actually looking out for 2019. So some larger volume purchases within that, in addition to about $3,000 in maintenance and some other like, miscellaneous expenses that we've encountered.
So what of these October expenses, what in these October expenses is something outside of inventory, or like expenses outside of
The
inventory?
only real notable one would be about $3,000 in maintenance items.
Mhm.
We purchased some cooler parts to fix those up, some other miscellaneous equipment things.
Okay. All right. We will move along then. Item 8, the consent agenda. We have a couple of changes to that, so I'm just going to read through the items that are still on consent. Consider accepting all reports and payment of claims. Consider confirming Parks and Planning Commission appointment. Consider resolution designating polling place for 2019 elections. consider disposal and sale of excess public works equipment, consider various personnel actions, and consider approval of comprehensive plan amendment for the middle school park property. Did I get them all? Okay. So if there's no discussion on any of those, we will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we don't have any presentations or public hearings, so we'll go to new business, and the first item is consider certifying the delinquent utility fees and charges to property taxes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you have a print copy of the properties and the dollar amounts that are seeking, or that we're seeking to actually assess to the property taxes themselves for 2019. Just as a reminder, what this is delinquent utility charges that are accrued through the year. Every once in a while, you'll see like a nuisance matter where we've paid to abate a nuisance as staff or as a council, and those charges would get put on the property. We don't have any of those at this point on this list. There's no other miscellaneous fees, so really you are looking at just utility fees. We work pretty regularly with utility holders to work with them on payments and to make sure that they're as current as possible, but still understanding the very obvious comment or statement that we have high utility rates. So that generally means we'll try to work with you to the best of your ability through payment plans and arrangements of the sort. These are folks that are above $300 and have not paid in some time. I know we have one resident here to address on one particular property or one item, but for the most part, we have been working with folks to whittle this down as recent as today. I think probably 10, 12 folks came off. I don't know. So this is kind of the last of the last.
There's one on here under $300, is there?
Yeah, that one in particular is actually a holdover of a particular outstanding utility charge from 3 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That makes
it's
sense.
much older. Yep. And I know Mr. Stenberg here is to address, so please come on up to the council and introduce yourself, and then the property.
Did you have a question, Jason, first? Or?
Yeah.
Maybe a silly question for the 10 to 12 people, or anybody that, hey, we have high water bills. Is there any way that whether it's a member of the city or at a council level or any punch list that could be provided, or a way that we could step in and say, hey, look, this is what we're noticing. This is what we see at your property. This is one of the reasons that you do. Like, I have irrigation. I understand what happens with irrigation. I have a high water bill because of it.
Yeah.
Here's things that we can do. You know, I had to go in and put different shower heads in. And I know I'm rambling there, but, you know, reduce the number of gallons on, you know,
Yeah.
any suggestions? I mean, is there any common theme as to why? Or is there something, a piece of faulty equipment or on any of these properties?
Sure. So I think what this list that you see in front of you, you're going to find a lot of different reasons why they're on this list, good, bad, or otherwise.
Okay.
We do have standard talking points as staff that at least attempt to explain why your bill is what it is, and we know we have high sewer rates, right? So we
Yep.
try to explain and defend that to the best of our ability. We do have talking points and some, I think, pretty basic literature on
Okay.
energy consumption or water consumption and that sort of thing. One of the things that we've also relaxed on is also irrigation meters, but keeping in mind the sewer rate itself is really based on your 3 lowest month uses or usage months. Irrigation doesn't really impact that
Right.
much to begin with, but we're also quick to reconcile where we do see errors. Once in a while, you'll see your bill that is actually higher than your average. We're quick to correct that. Folks that have no read fees almost always get it removed unless they're a real heavy habitual offender in that category. So again, the olive branches are there. And in fact, one of the things that Mr. Stenberg caught us on, and me specifically, our ordinance dictates that if you're above $300, we shut off your water. That being said, we also allow payment plans. So in the case of the property that he's here, and you'll explain it better, I'm sure. Thank you. In his case, the resident, he has a rental property, and his tenant was making payments per an agreement, but it still wasn't enough to avoid this list. Keeping in mind, one of the things that we look at, all of the things that we do as a city are backed by state statute. So we do believe that we have the statutory authority to put this fee onto your property taxes as a special assessment. One of the things that we try to do, maybe not as a cordiality, but just good business, any rental property, the actual utility bill itself will go to the renter as well as the property owner every single month. So both property owner and tenant sees that bill going forward. And we do have to follow a pretty specified process just to get this put on your council agenda, which typically means a letter about 30 to 45 days ago indicating the notice. We've probably been fielding.
So does that letter go to the property owner and the bill?
Yeah, all account holders, so it would be the property owner itself as well as the tenant. That being said, the actual ordinance that Mr. Stenberg will reference, it'll say we shut off water after $300. But to the earlier comment, that's the discretion of staff where we try to work with people to the best of our ability.
Can I ask another quick question?
Yes.
Then? Do you field many calls at a staff level from people that are moving into the community that have questions about what is the average, what is our average bill, what do I expect to see if I've got, if there's a family of 4, whether it's at Turning or Lake, anywhere, Dutch Lake?
I would say in Cherry or Aurora, if I'm speaking out of turn, let me know. But I think probably of, just say 100% of the folks that move into town or that set up a utility account with them, probably half of them ask that specific question. And we have a pretty good understanding of like an average family of 4 and what that looks like on a monthly basis. And we do offer that up.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yep.
Nick did a good job explaining that, but still have a question. Since I've gone to the people out front, they've been really good to work with. I'll say that. You got some good people up front. I had a meeting with Nick the other day about this question too, and when I left, I don't think I had an answer. I think I had, it was discretion, right?
Yes.
That was the answer I got. My specific question is, if someone is making payments, you will not shut the water off. Okay, does that sound right?
Yeah.
So someone has a water bill of $150 a month, and they're making $5 a month payments, you won't shut it off.
Do we have a stipulation of the payment amount?
We do not have a minimum payment amount. We try to get them so that they're at least keeping up with their current billing plus catching up on their arrears. But again, I'm fully admitting to Mr. Stenberg's point. We use discretion pretty liberally in this because you also get a pretty bad rap when you shut off water, right?
This was pretty, a lot of discretion used when we got up to $1,500 and wouldn't shut it off. And I've asked and it would shut off. Now I got to put it in my taxes. I mean, I'll collect the money. Well, I shouldn't say that. A lot of renters know how to avoid getting it. So, but I mean, I've evicted people. I've gone through the process. I had the sheriff go. I've had the sheriff get bad checks. I mean, I'll go through this, but it's a lot of hassle. I don't think we should have to do. If you would just say you have to make $50 payments or $30 payments plus your monthly fee, or we're going to shut it off. You don't have that. So, you know, if you know renters, they're renting for a reason. A lot of them, I've got some really good people renting, and they're paying their little bills, and everything's up to date except this one, and they're going to be gone. Anyhow, if you just make some kind of a, this is what we're going to do, I don't know what to tell them. When they come in here, they say, we're going to make payments. That's all I have to say. You won't shut the water off.
Yeah.
This doesn't make it. That makes absolutely no business sense whatsoever to me. If you can explain that to me, I'd like to hear it. And that's why I'm here, because I didn't get a good answer at this up front. Nick didn't give me a good answer. I'd like to hear from you guys what the answer is to that question.
Well, I mean, you're right, it doesn't make good business sense, but I think that's the point, that we're not, I mean, we would like to operate like a business, but however, we try to be a little bit more lenient because these people are residents and a lot of times they have hardships, and this ends out to be more of a hardship for you than your renters, obviously. So I agree with your
so
point.
What you're saying then, they're more important than I am.
No, that's not.
That's exactly what you're saying.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we have a history of being lenient and working with people, and we're just continuing that. I'm not saying that it's right, because obviously it isn't right for you.
Could I get a list of those people that have that you're assessing them?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if I could also interject, from a business sense standpoint, as a city, and over the course of our entire existence as a city, we have a 100% collection rate of property taxes. So we will get paid what we are putting onto the property taxes from the special assessment. So I believe we have a very solid business plan in that regard. I think as a property owner and then one that has renters, and I'm speaking as a renter myself that also owns rental properties, it is the property owner's responsibility as a business owner to make sure that they're getting collection as well. And to help them with that, we send out monthly statements of the current balance due.
Well, and honestly, shutting off the water, it is one thing that we can do, but they're still gonna incur charges because
Okay,
they're still
but-
gonna
but
have,
you
they're not
can
gonna have usage,
You
but
could
they'll.
shut this water off, and I asked, when it was about 2 months past due, there would be no more charges. I would pay for it from then on, the utility bills. So why wouldn't you shut it off when they're over $300 due and they're not making in good faith payments at all, just making minimal payments? They're not even paying the current payment each month. They're paying a minimal amount, not even the current monthly payment, but a minimal amount, and you won't shut the water off.
But why, I guess I'm a little bit confused, why does it take us shutting the water off to trigger you to make a payment? You're getting the bills too, right?
I don't make the payment.
The renter.
Okay, I talked to Chuck Paschke, he said my lease agreement is legal. It says in there, they are responsible for utilities.
Right, I know, but you said if you would have started paying the bill once we shut the
No,
water
once you
off.
shut it off, they're gonna leave.
Oh, I
They
see,
can't live
I
without
see.
water.
Okay,
Then
I see.
every time somebody leaves, I've got one vacant right now, I pay the bill till someone comes in. I just did another one, they just moved in, I paid the bill till they got in. You never had anything where it was empty, where it wasn't paid.
I understand, I just
Okay.
misunderstood you.
Okay.
I fully agree that there's probably necessary direction from these guys in terms of discretion, like what is acceptable, what is not. I accept that responsibility. That being said, we have had multiple instances where we have shut off water on property and they do not leave. And in some of those cases, there's children in the property and suddenly the city is creating an unsafe living condition for a family. A property owner didn't make a move, the renter did not make payments. It's easier for us to keep the water on in that regard. Again, discretion.
Okay, then could you please set up an amount that they have to pay at least a monthly bill and something on the past bill, on the past $300? Could that be put in your ordinances?
It could,
And why would-
So-
and
I
why
mean, I don't
would-
know how
and
effective
why-
it would be.
What would be a good reason not to do that?
I think we just explained several of them. But that being said, the purpose of this hearing tonight is to dispute if these charges are lawful and accurate. We believe that they are. The one thing I will say, Mr. Stenberg, we will be looking at this ordinance for a number of different reasons. You're not wrong.
See, I'm not disputing that you're doing something illegal, not at all. That's not my point. My point is, I don't think you have it set up where, if it's discretion, why shouldn't I have some discretion in that decision?
Are you suggesting that there should be some notification sent to you
Oh, there's
and not?
notification sent. What good does that do? When they get the bill, and the bill is $1,200, and they pay $50, and their monthly bill is $150, I get that. I mean, and they're gonna be gone, but I mean, it took, have any of you ever evicted somebody? You know how much it costs to evict them? And how long it takes?
And how long it takes?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would rather work it out, and if I could use your assistance, I'd say, look, here's our policy, here's what we have in writing, but you don't have that. There's just discretion. Whose discretion? Is it, do you know whose discretion it is? I don't know whose discretion.
It's the staff.
I just said it's
You know,
mine, and that's
I
where
mean,
they're.
Do they full
yeah.
discretion on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, but they don't come to us.
Even the ordinance, the way it exists now, I mean, an average water bill is 100,
Yeah.
180, maybe 170. So you have someone that's misses their second month,
Right.
whammo, their water's off. I know one of the, way back when, we kind of switched it over where we would allow the renters to pay that utility bill as a convenience.
Yes.
So if it becomes a hassle doing that, then, maybe we have to go back where the property owner gets that bill, is responsible to paying it, and we
collecting
don't
it.
go by the
Well, that's
renters.
what it is now.
Well,
It is.
except
Because
the
right-
renters
because
are allowed to pay that
They're
bill.
allowed to, but right now,
Right.
my lease agreement, Chuck said was legal. Your city attorney said that because it said that they pay utilities, it said that's legal, you can do that.
Right,
So,
but I mean,
Mr.
pay them
Stenberg-
to you, and then you would be responsible to pay the city.
Well, I'm
You have a
responsible.
lawful
Right.
lease from a civil point of view, so your remedy in that instance would be to seek a civil junction, something of the sort, at Wright County Court. You have a legal
Yeah,
agreement, but that
yeah,
doesn't
I've been
include
doing this
us.
30 years. I know about going through the
Yeah.
process. I know that. My only thing tonight is, do you think you could put something in that they've gotta pay so much or it'll be shut off? You know, they can't let it go up to $1,500. And if you can't tell me, that'd be okay.
I mean, I don't know that we can't. I mean, we can't. We certainly could.
I hope to have this ordinance in front of you in probably the first couple months in 2019. Mr. Stenberg is right. I mean, you guys should provide us more direction in terms of that discretion. That's ultimately on me. I'm telling you the justification for that discretion.
And we didn't always have a shut-off policy in there, did we?
No, we did.
We always did.
We
Yeah.
had some places
Yeah, I
shut
think
off.
so.
We allowed
Yeah.
less bill than this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's other areas,
That's
and I
their
think
discretion.
we actually disagree on this too, but there's other areas where we can interact with this as well. Like a rental ordinance is another one that we could put more clause into this. You also don't like that, I get that, but what I'm saying is there's other ways that we can also approach this. And
But I
you'll be
mean,
talking
to
about
Gene's
those.
point, you know, I mean, the simplest remedy for us would be to say, we're not dealing with renters anymore, you get the bill, it's now the homeowner's problem, whether you have a renter or
Okay.
you, I'm just saying, like, that's.
You will shut it off when I ask you to. Okay?
Well, what, then we're just gonna
We do
follow
that.
our same policy, and, I mean, but that, if you're not paying the bill, then we're shutting off the water for somebody who's now not responsible for the bill. Do you know what I
Okay,
mean?
I'll be,
That's where it gets.
who's gonna pay this bill that they're behind on? Them or me?
Well, but you're just saying if it doesn't get paid and we're gonna shut it off, then.
No, okay, you said, who's paying the bill? Who's gonna pay that? Who is responsible for that bill? You are.
Ultimately, you
Exactly
are, right.
I'm responsible, so don't say they're responsible.
Ultimately, you are
I'm
responsible.
responsible, I know that,
Yeah.
I know that.
I guess the thing I don't understand is if him, as the landlord, requested that that water be shut off because of the inflated
Yep.
bill.
Why didn't
wouldn't
we
have
do
done
it?
that?
Because we would be making an unsafe, unsanitary living condition. Mind you, when folks come to this front window with the reason as to why they're unable or why they need time, why they have a more agreeable payment plan, they're not good stories, guys. So again, we know that utilities are high. We're going to be as lenient as possible. Really, where this impacts the most population is the rental community, which already by their nature has a different socioeconomical class than owner occupied. So that's where we also go back to the property owner is responsible. I'm still agreeing with Daryl. We need to revisit this ordinance to give it more teeth or more guidance from you guys.
Okay, Nick said he gets a lot of good sob stories, and they're real. I tell all my renters, if you can't pay the rent, give me an excuse, but don't ever give me an excuse that I haven't heard before. And the family you're talking about, there's no little kids, this, maybe high school, 2 adults. So,
We still need to be as
you know, to have, these guys that come in and give you a sob story like you can't believe. This, one of them, I won't say which one it was, there was $1,000 in the 401k should get a loan on it. But why pay the bill instead of using their own money? So anyhow, my question is, well, I guess my statement is that you don't have a system, and nothing's gonna change right now. right?
In the next
Well,
2 to
not
3
tonight,
months.
no.
Well, not that, I know that, you guys, I know government takes a long time to get these things done, I understand that. But-
Mr. Mayor, the one thing you could do is pull this from being applied to the property, but that would still essentially kick the can. We're still not
Right,
changing
yeah.
the statutory obligation of
One, it
who's
still makes
responsible.
Mr.
He
Stenberg
would then-
responsible. I mean,
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I'm getting at.
I'm gonna pay
No, I
it.
know, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. We could pull it off of
Right.
here, but you still have to pay it,
I
unfortunately.
understand that, and I would
Yeah.
appreciate you doing that, because then I can go to them, and I have a whole year then to go after them and get it.
Sure, and I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know which one of these it is, so you'll have to tell us, but.
I would need help
Okay.
with that too, actually, but I think we'll just know that it's your
Yeah, we'll
property.
pull yours
Yeah,
off.
because we,
And I know which one.
okay.
Well, I mean, never mind.
Mhm.
Never mind.
Which one is it, Sherry? Just give the last four of the PID.
Well, I don't know off the top of my head.
Oh, got it. That's what I thought you meant.
No,
Never mind.
but I know
Yeah, we'll
I
pull.
can look it up and I can find it.
Yeah.
Well, then give me the last three of the account number.
Would you like me to go look?
Sorry,
it
I
up?
thought you had it. No, we'll know to pull it. But I think you make really good points. So.
Okay,
That's the only one
that's
you
it.
have on there, right, Darryl?
Thank goodness. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you offer up the resolution for approval, it would be without Mr. Stenberg's property. For now, that'll be good enough.
Yep.
Okay,
Go
just
look.
make sure you get it right.
Huh?
So just make sure you get it right.
I will, I know.
Okay. All right, thanks, Daryl. Okay, so I think we then need a motion to approve the delinquent utility fees and charges list to be certified to the county with the exception of the Stenberg property, which we will remove.
Yep.
So we'll entertain that motion.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item B, consider approval of quote to replace the rooftop unit at the former wastewater treatment plant. This sounds expensive.
So in October, the rooftop unit on the former wastewater treatment plant failed and was beyond repair. We had a couple different repair companies come out and it could not be repaired. And actually, if you recall, as part of our facilities assessment that was completed earlier this year, this piece of equipment in particular was called out as one that was past its useful life and would need to be repaired soon because they don't manufacture parts to fix it anymore. So unfortunately it broke down in October and the guys have been putting up with kind of space heaters to keep the space warm, but as the temperatures continue to drop, we need to get this resolved. So once we got 2 quotes put together, that's why this was a late add to the agenda to make sure it could get approved. So what you will see is there are 2 quotes there. We are actually recommending the higher quote from AR Ing for about $8,900. And the reason being, we've worked with this vendor before. We've found that they have superior service, superior quality in their products. So we feel more comfortable using this vendor to supply the replacement. I'll also say that replacing this unit would be eligible for a rebate from Excel of about $140 that we'll apply for as we replace this piece of equipment. So we do have enough funds in our facilities fund to pay the cost of this rooftop unit anyway, and it was something that we would need to do in the short term anyway. So with that, I'd recommend approving the estimate to replace the rooftop unit from AR Ing.
So the rooftop unit is a heating unit, is that right?
Heating and air conditioning, yep.
Now, further down, I figured that out, but
And
Yep.
this is a smaller size than what was previously in place, correct?
I am not sure. I don't know specifically on the size of the previous
Yeah,
one.
I think we made it slightly smaller because we're heating and cooling
Mhm.
essentially just the office, not the
Right.
former treatment plant.
Oh,
Right.
So if we were comparing apples to apples, you'd be considerably higher. We're just
Right.
trying to condition the office space.
Yeah.
sorry, not heating any of the other spaces?
So he's meaning the office area only is what this heater and air conditioner controls because each of the garages in there each have their own hanging heaters.
Oh, I see.
Yep, so they have a separate heating
Got it.
system in those.
Okay. Well, it was 8 degrees this morning, so
Yeah.
we better do something.
Yeah.
the time is gone.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so there's no other discussion. We'll entertain a motion to approve the quote from AR Ing for the rooftop unit.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, consider approval of point of sale system for the Howard Lake Wine and Spirits.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have our fearless liquor store manager
How
back in
excited
the
are
house.
you about this one, Myra?
Yeah. So I thought
Very
tonight
excited about this.
what we would do, Myra and I have a short PowerPoint that we'd like to go over to at least update the greater council and community on our revamping efforts at the liquor store. But clearly, as you see on your agenda item, this ends with the ask of a purchase of a new point of sale system.
I was kind of hoping this purchase price was already in those October financials, but.
Yeah, I figured that was what you're fishing for. It is not. So to start, really what we've done, we've established a staff committee that has looked at virtually every single facet of the liquor enterprise and business itself. We've kind of broken down our efforts into 3 phases. The first is what we're calling triage, where we're looking at all of the data, the reports, the financials that we can get our hands on. We started writing a business plan for the actual business itself, and we've revamped the front house experience, basically the way that the store looks, how it's laid out. The next phase, where we're kind of transitioning into right now, is implementing best practices, reassigning roles, and making sure the back of the house is appropriate. And when I say back of the house, that's really the business side of it itself, how we do reports, who handles the financials, that sort of thing. And finally, longer term, we'll get into some of our proposed partnerships with the City of Buffalo, which you will likely see in front of you in December or January. So just to show, this is just kind of a screenshot of the actual work plan that we've established, that we've gone over in a little bit greater detail with the liquor committee. You can't really read it, but that's the point. What I'm trying to show here is that we're taking this seriously. It's broke down into about 6 different big categories with a whole bunch of stuff that back ends it. And we're pretty confident that once all of these boxes are checked, we're going to have a really strong, successful liquor operation. So starting with just kind of the operations at a high level, again, we want the store to be fresh, welcoming, friendly now, but also as we look at our greater expansion of the first floor with the historic City Hall renovation. We've done all new painting. We've gotten quite a bit of new shelving, displays, and fixtures. We tried to get rid of all of the temporary displays. We had plywood displays, little wire racks that were part of kind of promos from vendors, just to kind of come up with a more standard commercial, professional, appealing look. The next one that we're also working on, the bottom picture there, the bottom left, is better window displays for our smaller products. That's one of our fastest moving products, and it also frees up room on the actual gondolas themselves. To the right there, what you'll see is the bulk wine, and that's significant for a couple different reasons. First, all the products that you see there have actually been lowered in price in the last 30 days. Working with the City of Buffalo, we're buying at such quantities that we're able to sell for less and actually make a little bit more money as an operation. The other significant thing with this, not only does it look attractive, but it also limits the number of times that staff is handling a product. In some instances, we have 9 out of 12 bottles overstocked. So when we look to expand into the greater first floor of the municipal liquor store, we'll eliminate that. So instead of touching a product 2 or 3 times before it's sold, we're touching it once as we put it on the shelf. It makes sense, it looks attractive, helps us all around.
Hopefully it saves some exertion on your staff too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We're really trying to eliminate or at least minimize how much we're going up and down the stairs from the basement. The next, in terms of organizational capacities, that's where we were discussing at a pretty high level last month, but we've done a nice job over the last 30 to 60 days of kind of shuffling some things around. Sherry has taken an impressive role with some of the financials of the city liquor store. That kind of came as a baptism by fire because Myra was out on her medical leave, but I think Sherry did phenomenal. Thank you. But also it frees capacity for Myra to focus more on the operation of the store itself. The other thing that we're doing, again, we're working with the City of Buffalo, currently under kind of a consultant agreement, but what we're looking to do is formalize that into a joint powers agreement where there's not money exchanged, but there is time and talent. And with that would come a much greater control of inventory, bulk buying, and matched pricing. Essentially, if you walk into the liquor store in Buffalo or the City of Howard Lake, you will buy the same product at the same price. We're buying at the same price and selling at the same price. again, going through about 2,000 product SKUs, that's allowing us in many cases to actually lower prices and make more money as an operation because we're buying at the right price and selling at the right price.
We are now fully competitive.
Correct.
In the market.
So again, where we're going tonight is the actual request of a point of sale system. And we are stressing this because out of all the things that we've been kind of working towards, this comes down to two big council asks. One is this point of sale system, and the other is the joint powers agreement with the city of Buffalo that you'll see in the next month or two. Everything else, we've done a really nice job of picking up the pieces at a staff level and having the sweat equity to move it forward. So with that, I want to get into the nitty-gritty of the actual point of sale system. I do want to explain because this is not the first point of sale, it's not the second, it's actually the third point of sale system that we've bought in the last 4 years, I believe. And I want to give that a little context because actually the story that I'm about to share is exactly the same as the city of Buffalo's for almost the same reasons. So working backwards from 2014, we had a product by National Cash Register, NCR, a very prominent system that a lot of different retail outfits use. That system became largely unsupported, and we had to get something new. NCR at that time had a replacement package for equipment and software of about $30,000, which as a council, we said there's no way that we can afford that big of a price tag. So instead, we shopped it out and we ultimately leased a system through Dinerware. This has a cost of $220 a month with a 5-year term. The system was actually pretty good when we had the on-sale operation because it was largely geared at the on-sale, and at that time it did help us control pours, control product in and out. Worked really well for the on-sale, but as you know, in 2015 we closed the on-sale. And it's at that time that we really identified all the weaknesses that it had for retail point of sale. So we went back to the same provider and changed systems, same lease terms, but it was a transition in a point of sale system to what we have now. So we have about a year, I think it's actually 8 or 9 months left on that lease. What we're looking at doing today really stems from two big catalyst moments. One, PCI compliance, the little chip that you see on your debit card and credit cards. We had to become compliant with that, and with that, we discovered a lot of vulnerabilities with our current system. It would crash. We'll get into some of that nitty-gritty later, but that was one moment. The second was what we're calling this liquor reboot, with new eyes, new people asking a lot of questions, really digging deep into this operation. We have discovered that this system just is not good enough for what we need to do as a business to be successful. The other big benefit, and again, Myra will do a nice job of articulating that, if we're going to get serious about this partnership with the city of Buffalo, this will essentially create one point of sale system to track inventory across 3 stores so that we're able to buy and sell product as one unit, which is a pretty impressive thing when you consider we would then go from buying or having the buying power of a store that makes $850,000 in gross sales to one of almost $6 million. Like, it's an impressive deal. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Myra, who will go over some of the issues that we have with the point of sale as well as what we're looking to gain with the new one.
Yes, thank you. As I have here, our current system issues and limitations are, number one is lately the timed out sales. It takes 5 minutes, 5 excruciating minutes for a transaction if our card machine is not working properly. And our average sale, I mean, we want them in and out in 90 seconds is what they say. Everybody's in and out really quick. So this has been so hard these days, and to keep a smile on your face and just keep moving everyone along, and to be positive still. Number 2, the inability to create all reports necessary for proper inventory control and business forecasting. Currently piecing together 3 or 4 reports on 2 separate systems right now. I have 2 computers in my office right now where I still do things on both, and prior to 2014 computer for things. Unable to run back office when transactions is in process. Currently they have given us a tool called ConnectWise. So when I'm at my desk in the back, I can connect to the register up front. That's where I would do my receiving, invoicing, reports, anything that I'd like to do in the back office, but unable to do that when customers are there and my staff is ringing people up. So there I sit for minutes at a time, unfortunately waiting as they finish that transaction so I can get back in there and finish my work. Number 4, unable to create price tags and fully track inventory. Right now I print labels on the old system. So I'm actually keeping 2 systems up on cost and price because I want that to, because I'm updating all the time and using that to print labels. The POS does not track promotions, discounts, and track breakage as we would like. Current interface to back office is TeamViewer, or as I talked to before, a screen located off-site entirely. I am currently using the 2014 system for inventory and pricing, and an incredible waste of staff time, honestly, to fill in these gaps elsewhere. Yeah, it's been really tough. The chip reader and trying to be PCI compliant has really put that in our, it really showed that our software isn't capable of taking it all in anymore, I believe, so. Right, so we have a proposed solution, which is called the Counterpoint, or the NCR that we talked about many years ago, but now looks wonderful. The system will match and be integrated with Buffalo Wine and Spirits, eliminating any travel time back and forth. Talks between Jason and I for wine and liquor could be done on phone, via email, him just looking right at our system. I'd as well have that to look and say, we don't currently have them, but Buffalo Downtown has 3 capabilities that I have none of now to be very integrated. Full inventory control to order, price, and sell products. Reports necessary for full data-driven decisions in place. A proven software and reliable tech support specific to municipal liquor stores. Right, currently the old system, of course, Dinerware was like, hey, take it up, order. So definitely not quite the retail system. This will eliminate previous and current POS systems to one standalone system. Price tags, sales stickers, and price controls handled on one system.
So, council, looking at the financial, legal, and some recommendation pieces of this, this does come with a price tag of $12,103. But mind you, that includes the proposed point of sale system, the hardware. Mind you, we're actually getting some hardware from the city of Buffalo pro bono. Like there's some that they can just throw at us that are extra for those folks. But it also includes software, the installation and training, transition of our current data, and 1 year of tech support in that $12,000 figure. Some legal considerations that are also financial as well. We have 8 lease payments left on our current financing package, and to understand that we bought a system from like a tech company essentially, but we leased from a financial company, just like when you walk into a store and use your credit card, right? So our obligation with these folks still stays in place, and that's kind of a bitter pill to swallow at $1,700. We are currently working with our current credit card provider because we do believe there's some issues there, like we were explaining with the PCI compliance, the little chip deal, to get those folks to cover this. We don't have a firm answer on that yet, but we're trying to eliminate the $1,700 because we believe this purchase to be timely and imminent so that we can be successful to move forward. In terms of the recommendation, again, we are recommending this NCR system. Mind you, it's pretty much the system that we dismissed several years ago, but it's come down so much in price because it's been broadcast. Excuse me. This does come as part of a Liquor Commission recommendation as well, and I would really like to hear from Pete and Tom just to get your buy-in or weigh-in on that as well. But before I do turn it over, I will be straight with the fact that your alternative actions include an enhanced system of our current provider for a few $100. It'd be very, very cheap. However, we see no guarantee after 2 failed POS systems that the third would be the right one. They're still not in the municipal business. They still don't do that offering. The second, we did get a second quote that I believe was about $7,000, not $12,000. This would actually serve our needs in Howard Lake, but it would leave us as a silo and isolate it from the city of Buffalo. So again, the benefit with this, if we're trying to buy product with the city of Buffalo, this would be one system that's shared between both operations. With that, again, I want Pete and Tom to say anything that you may have, because we've been hogging the floor, and certainly any questions, comments that you have.
Well, we did meet, and we discussed this with Nick and Aurora and Jason from Buffalo, and I mean it was a tough conversation. I think not only because, but mostly because $12,000 is a lot of money when we're looking at, you know, not so great financials, right? So, I mean, we felt, and I don't want to speak for you, Tom, but we felt like this is it. Like, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it right, and it probably makes the most sense to do what's best for this to work, for this partnership with Buffalo to work, you know, kind of at its peak, where is really what we need. I mean, Jason did indicate that the other system he was familiar with, I think, and had confidence in, really, and thought that it would work fine for us. But when it came to that connectivity between their store and our store, and, you know, right now the partnership doesn't equate to, you know, us writing a check to Buffalo for Jason's time, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't be that way in the future. So if it's going to go that way, and then don't we want him to be, and Myra to be, the most efficient that they can be? And this more expensive system really was the answer. I mean, there was a lot of discussion. It wasn't just about a point of sale system, but it was eye-opening, I would say.
I feel,
And I think with going together and being able to do the buying that we can together, and then Jason can always, or be able to look at our system without having to come over here.
Mm-hmm.
Or call you.
Or
correct?
Yeah.
call Meyer or whatever. He can just pull it up and look and see where our inventory is and be able to say, okay, this is what we need to order here, and do it. It's just that we've had so many issues with the other system, you know, not being able to do what we need it to do. And I know it, I felt like saying just screw it and not pay the rest, but we're kind of obligated that we have to, so. This, you know, we got to do it. If we're going to try and make this liquor store successful, I think we need to do this and go to the next step.
And I think we have, you know, we have an asset in Jason, in that he's familiar with the system, and, you know, can pass that on to Myra. And, you know, Myra's a quick learner, and I know she'll,
Absolutely.
you know, do well with it and be able to do things on her own, that we don't need him so much, you know. And I mean, we've known for how many years now that we're not able to get good information. And how do you make good decisions as a manager, as administrator, as a council, if you don't have good information? If you know, if you're spending all this time getting it out of a system, and then you don't necessarily trust it, or you're using two systems, or whatever the reason. So it's a tough price tag, man.
And
But-
correct me if I'm wrong, this system gives us 2 cash registers to work
Oh, right,
with
yeah,
also,
good
whereas
point.
right now we only have 1.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so, I mean, that was another thing that kind of sold me also, was the
Yeah.
fact that with the expansion of the liquor store, we're going to need 2.
Right, we're gonna be busy enough to need to, right, Myra?
Yes. I see nothing but awesome with this whole thing. I can't wait.
I mean, there's times right now, you know, I'm sure there's moments in the week or weekend that you probably, it would be helpful to have two, but.
Absolutely. Gearing up for what is our biggest day of the year tomorrow. So,
Yeah,
yes.
true. If we only did this last month. So, I mean, you know, like I said, that price tag is tough, but kind of to echo Tom's sentiment, if we're gonna do it, one, let's do it right, and, I mean, we're kind of just going all in at this point. I mean, for lack of a better term,
Thank
like,
you.
it's kind of all or nothing, you know? I mean, I just hope too that with this, and kind of with some of your previous slides, that, you know, when you're talking about prices and being competitive, and the only way people are gonna know that is if we tell them.
Yep.
Right.
So just keep that in mind.
It's coming, absolutely.
Yep.
Neither do I.
I mean, we're excited. I think
Mhm.
the Liquor Commission's excited about the partnership with Buffalo. We're excited about Myra stretching her wings a little bit, I think, with doing some work in Buffalo and with the renovation of, you know, I think all those pieces are really going to come together, and, you know, it's kind of a make or break, and we're shooting for make.
And I think after this renovation, I just feel it's really gonna help that business.
It will be it'll be 1,000 square feet. only. Yes.
And if you haven't been in the store lately,
Yes.
I mean, check it out. Just, it's funny how moving, you know, it's kind of like your house.
Yes.
You move the couch into a different spot and just gives you a whole new perspective. I mean,
Thank
it's,
you.
you know, it's Vermeer, it seems brighter.
Mhm.
The staff is always cheery, so that hasn't changed.
Thank
but-
you, that's awesome. Thank you.
So, I mean, the Liquor
Thank you.
Commission
Mhm.
recommends that we approve it, but, you know, it's the council's decision, so. If you couldn't tell from our glowing recommendation here.
Well, you know, you gotta do it right, or it's not gonna work. And I think, personally, I think I asked a question when we first go around with the point of sale units that we got back and disappeared, you know, whatever it was. It seemed like, can't you get by with just cash registers?
Yeah.
But then, this was something that was going to let us track inventory, et cetera, and it seemed, well, this all makes sense, but it kind of fell on its face, so
Right.
and now we got a bigger bite, but I think it's probably a better chance of getting this thing turned around and going the right way. So I hope it, I know,
Mhm.
I can tell you guys have done a lot of work and research and working with Buffalo. That was a big help. You know that quantities are going to be better and your prices that you buy are going to be better. So if that part makes sense as well, but, so, good. But make it work.
No pressure.
That's the
No
plan.
pressure, no.
Great.
My concern is the amount of point of sales in such a short amount of time, the dollar amount that's associated with it. From a business standpoint, I've seen several pieces of software implemented where I work, and it doesn't equate to, or doesn't equal, or it's not going to guarantee me any additional sales, any additional revenues. It provides us the ability to track inventory, you know, more accurately. There can be garbage in, there can be garbage out. It's been, you've been in that rodeo for so long already, I feel that, and with the effort with Buffalo, that everybody has a pretty good idea of where inventory is at, what are the movers, where are we headed with it. But the amount of dollars and the effort that's taking place, putting into it now, for me, I think it's a quick, we need to do this, because we need to do it right, but is it the right time? We don't know if it's the right time. We don't know what's going to happen. So for me, what's the harm in waiting, because we can do it after the reboot is in full force. We can do it at any time, right? What it's really allowing us is to have Buffalo has better access. We can do everything that's in the PowerPoint, tracking things and doing all this good stuff, but we can do that at any time, right?
So if I could clarify, because I think I ultimately share your concern. Right now, we are essentially running a liquor store off of 3 systems, and it would be 4 if we added this one. So in terms of every time that we get an invoice, which is, say, 6 vendors, you know, I mean.
We have 10 vendors, sometimes multiples daily, you know,
Sure.
daily deliveries.
Yeah, so kind of walking the product cycle from ordering to putting it on the shelf and so forth, the biggest point of interaction is you get an invoice, You compare it against the product that was delivered to the door. You input it so that you understand what's in your inventory, but the other big part of that is you also compare it against the gross profit that you should be making as the markup. Right now, she has to do that twice in order to get one answer, to get one price tag. So I think just in terms of redundancies and efficiencies, having one system alone will eliminate that and make life far better. So I think if that's your concern and that's shared across the council, the cheaper option of about $7,000, the second quote, would actually eliminate that problem too. Right now, I do think it's completely unacceptable to run a store on the two systems because it's actually a point of contention with our auditor because one can be right, one can be wrong. So we get our wrist slapped with that. The other item, just in terms of efficiency of Myra's time, like this goes far better, not to mention the fact she cannot or a customer cannot transact or purchase while she's in the actual back office of the reports and so forth. And what we're finding now is we're asking it to do more and more complicated reports, more like thinking essentially as a system. She'll hit kind of file a report and then it'll just time out. So we're not even getting there ever.
It puts me into a preview screen that just keeps going forever, and then it shuts down the register as well up front.
Which means people can't buy things.
Overloads.
So it does make you less profitable.
Yeah.
So I actually export that, save, copy,
People need
export,
to,
paste.
right?
We've seen
Yeah.
it.
If
We've
they
seen it.
can't, if they
Unbelievable.
can't pay for what they want to buy,
It's
maybe-
almost always the second person in line. So what happens
Yeah.
is things actually start stacking up, and the one person that's waiting on their sale will typically stick it out because you see a countdown from 5 minutes before it reboots. But in that time, we'll have a second, third, fourth person not buy.
Specifically because of that.
Yeah, so
Yeah, like Saturdays. and
liquor is a
people
very
just walk out.
convenience-based purchase. We're not like a destination liquor store where you go in and try to find a $100 bottle of wine. That's just not our niche. Where we serve the best population is the grab and go. So when we reference 90 seconds for a sale, that's a true figure. People are typically habitual shoppers of the same product on the same day of the week, grab and go. And we're losing those.
What was surprising to me too was when we met, is they brought us some statistics, and it was amazing the number of small little bottles of liquor
Yeah.
that sell. I mean, I can't remember what the numbers were, but they were astronomical.
It's like in the thousands.
I was going to say 1,000 plus a month he sells
Yeah.
over there. Little kind of
And it's a rack that's this big, but again, it's a purchase that you either add on or you walk into alone. It's quick. You want to walk in, grab it, and go.
But to Jason's point, you can still do that without spending $12,000
Yeah.
on the
Yep.
system.
Yes.
You know, I
You
mean-
yeah. Again, I think you need to address the system somehow. So the alternative is a separate system from Paul Sabinski for $7,000.
Right.
Yes.
And the real advantage of the more robust system is the connectivity with Buffalo. I mean,
Yes.
It's the
Yes.
timing.
Yes.
It's all happening
I
now.
mean, because even Jason spoke highly of the other system, and that, I mean, he's not as familiar with it, and I'm sure the two of you would be able to figure out how to do the same reports, but all of the stuff that we need, they already have set up, but you already know how to do. And I mean, we're not really getting good profitability reports from our current system or
Right.
our top 10 sellers, or, you know, I mean,
Right.
you can kind of get that information.
We piece it together
but-
with 3 or 4 different reports.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I agree with you that, you know, spending more money in this case doesn't mean increased
Well,
sales, but
it's a tough sell to a resident that, I mean, I don't, if a resident goes in there and he wants to buy a case of Old Milwaukee or Busch Light, I mean, I'm gonna buy it or not because of the point of sale. I'm gonna buy it. I don't care about the software that we have.
But on that note, if I may say, that is my best and biggest tool at the store, my POS system. And so
Right,
with
it's
that,
not- right,
I'm
right.
using 2 and 3 tools right now. But if I had one, that would be all together, and it would be so much more efficient.
yeah.
And I think too,
I agree. I
like
do
the
agree.
POS system is what manages our inventory, but it's also what checks people out. So it does make a difference for people when our system freezes, shuts down, we can't process payments. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've been in there and Myra's on the phone with support or her staff are on the phone with support trying to figure out what's going on, why it's not working. and how to get it uploaded. So that's
Does-
just time that we're just down. We're not operational.
Does Buffalo experience any similar issues at all with theirs?
Not at all.
None at all?
Nothing like that.
Well, that's extremely important. If you got people backing out, you get them out, and you think you haven't lost them, but the next time they go to buy, they might go right by to somewhere else.
Right. We're also just trying to create a positive atmosphere for
Buying experience.
For,
Yeah,
a positive
exactly.
buying experience. Myra prides herself on that customer service culture. It is not comfortable when you have a piece of equipment that you cannot control and someone that wants to just grab and go.
Well, and you're right, like a customer doesn't care what kind of system that we have, but your customers probably don't care if you're using Windows 98, so maybe we should give you Windows 98 at work and see how well that works. I'm just kidding.
I'll get out my Commodore 64K
Yeah.
and go to town on that. No, I what is important to me is that, Myra, that you're out front, that people can see you, because that's when I see you, I mean, I smile, you're smiling, so that's important to me. So more time that you can spend, the better.
Thank you.
Great questions, though.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Anything else? Anything else to add, Myra, since we got you here?
I just can't even wait for all this. I know it's going to be awesome. Thank
When
you.
does this, when,
Tell everyone to come back.
when, if approved, when does,
Yeah, so they look at about a 2 to 3 week turnaround. Having been through this enough, it probably takes another week plus or minus to be fully operational. So I think potentially if we give the go-ahead tonight, we'd probably be ready for our other big week, which is that Christmas to New Year's week.
does it fit within the new space and everything too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this all
Yep,
lines
it
up
all-
with it. We don't have to make any other,
In terms of like equipment, that looks almost
Good
the
question.
same. And the other nice thing, you know, we looked at every facet of this business, and what we saw, like Myra was using old microwave stands from the 80s as a desk. So we paid $70 at IKEA and got a new desk. You know, even things like this point of sale, she has 2 towers, 2 monitors that are cluttering up that space where it still just makes the workflow on a literal basis harder. That goes away with this.
after the first year of support, with what is the ongoing support after that?
So they build in about $1,000, I believe, for installation the first year support.
Oh.
They anticipate an annual tech support fee of about $350, which is
seems
very similar
reasonable.
to what we do now.
Yep.
And how long has Buffalo had this same point of sale?
Oh, they upgraded it 3 years ago, 2 years
Yeah,
ago?
it's almost
Recent,
'cause
very recent as well.
the liquor stores almost all went through kind of the same motion that we did. They picked different paths, but we happened to pick almost the same path as theirs. They're just ahead of us at this point. They've had their system for 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yep.
And the system that we have made sense at the time.
Yeah.
You know,
Correct.
so.
We want it to make sense next year, though, too.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, if there's nothing else, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Good luck, Myra.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Myra.
All right, item D, consider approval of orderly annexation agreement with Victor Township.
Just took a couple of years, Mr. Mayor. We're there. We are there.
Is this good till like 2022 or like just through 2018?
This is a
Couple
10-year
years,
agreement.
few meetings.
Yeah. Councilor Coots, Mr. Mayor, as our intergovernmental committee, you have been phenomenal to get us across this finish line.
I mean, we do get all the exciting topics. We
You
get
do.
the liquor store.
You
we
get liquor,
Victor
you
Township.
get townships. It's good days.
That's why we gave Jason chickens. We couldn't handle any more excitement.
All right. So what we have in front of us is an updated orderly annexation agreement with Victor Township. I'm going to go through section by section the changes that are proposed. And I'll kind of save as a spoiler alert. Ultimately, these changes are relatively nominal. We're not even changing the overall area that we have for an annexation area.
One quick question.
Yes.
This is our draft of this agreement. How do I want to say this? Like, we're approving this and then it goes to Victor?
Yeah,
right?
so I actually sent the agreement because it met all of their final talking points,
Oh,
but
okay.
then they will approve the final agreement at their December meeting, I want to say. Yeah.
And I guess it's not that important right now.
But either way, they've seen what's in front of you. They agree to it in concept. Now we just need to actually execute.
Okay.
So from the top, and I'm just kind of going in order of where we start at the modifications. The first one, and arguably the biggest point of contention or discussion between the city and the township, Section 12, Paragraph B, we're including a $1,500 annual maintenance fee for all road maintenance, road right-of-way maintenance within the entire annexation agreement. There was a piece of property that's considered in city limits, but it's not contiguous to any other corporate city limits. They're basically saying that as that property is in city limits, but it's surrounded by township, we have some responsibilities in terms of road maintenance. Again, this was pretty highly debated back and forth. Ultimately, this is a recommendation again of our committee of Tom and Pete, but it's also we believe it to be fair. It's a relatively small dollar amount, and where they were focusing on one section of road, this covers the entire annexation area.
So that section only addresses road and street maintenance. Does it also say that we're not responsible for other maintenance?
So that's the final thing that they were actually just tossing back and forth. We agreed in person that we would take capital or like large unforeseen events as a case-by-case basis
Right.
that needed to be approved by the city and the township in advance. I missed that last little provision, so I included that, and you'd be approving it on that basis as well in your packet. So this would be all general maintenance, but it would not be if a culvert washed out, if we have a flood and a road washes out. Again, in discussions with Victor, they can point to roughly 2 instances over the last 10 years where this would have been an issue. One of them, Victor staff came to city staff and they handled it after the fact that we found out, and we just cut the check.
Right, and I'm not saying they can't ask for that. I just want to make sure we're not making ourselves obligated in here to.
It requires
Or-
pre-authorization of the city and township.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So moving on, sections 12, D, E, and F, and G are removed entirely. Really what this is a kind of a smattering of properties that related to where we thought the high school would be located, but ultimately it was not. So again, it just cleans up current development patterns to our current city limits. This allowed for some additional annexation in the southern part near Haywood, near 70th Street. It removes that because we're just not going to develop that area. Again, section 18, the school contingency, they put in language of what would happen and under what terms when the school is built, and it referenced an area that was not developed. And not only that, but we already have a school and it's in city limits. We just get rid of this. It's a moot point. We also discussed planning and zoning authority. This keeps it at Wright County. There was an option where the township and the city could form almost a quasi-planning commission of city and township and review development requests. There was virtually no interest in doing this, but it was a new opportunity with this annexation agreement to consider that. They made no changes. This keeps it at the local authority for both the city and the township for relative development requests.
Although I think we did make it sort of clear that as a courtesy, they could at least reach out to us if somebody decided they want to put a feedlot.
Yeah, so
within a mile
statutorily,
of city limits or something.
anything that is not an explicit permitted use, we actually get notification from Wright County anyway when there's a public hearing, similar to when we send out public hearing notices. So there are some checks in place already that help us with that. I think, again, to Pete's point, we made it pretty clear that we want to be players, especially where it interacts with us the most. And in this case, it's Highway 12 as you come into Howard Lake, because that's township area. But we want to make sure that our gateways as you're coming into town are presentable, and they seemed receptive of that. In terms of financial impact, there was really no changes. Again, we did specify $1,500 per year for road maintenance in the township area. There's a stipulation of $200 per acre at the time of annexation. Basically, if we go forward and annex additional property into city limits, we're not buying the property, but we're making it part of the city, we pay $200 per acre. The other thing that is unchanged is the graduated tax payments, which say over a 5-year period, basically a reduction would occur from the township to the city so that they can kind of absorb that financial cost. So year 1, 100% of the tax payments go to the township, year 2, 75, so on and so forth. That's unchanged from our original annexation agreement to our proposed. And again, the $200 per acre is also unchanged. Believe it or not, land prices from 2008 to today, when the first agreement to this one, are pretty close to the same, despite the wonky ride that we've had in both farmland prices as well as residential parcels. Long term, it's pretty close to where we were at here, so we're recommending no changes. In a nutshell, that is the agreement.
It seems like it's been a long time coming, but I mean,
It's never been a top priority, honestly, so.
Only a few years.
but I mean, really working with the township has been, I mean, it's gone really well, I think, when you get two elected boards together, things get interesting. And then you throw Nick into the mix. No, but I mean, some of this stuff did require a lot of kind of busy work, I think. Not busy work, but research with the per acre price. And, Victor had a lot of really good concerns, and they were, they're protecting their residents, and we're doing the same. So, the fact that we finally got here is exciting, I think. It's good to have an agreement. We cleared up a lot of questions. So, we'll entertain a motion if no one has any questions.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E, consider approving license agreement with BNSF Railroad for operation of trail.
Yes, this is a license agreement. As you know, this is literally paying Burlington Northern Railroad to go underneath the bridge with our trail. Yep. It is a 25.
It's not shocking at all.
Right? It is a 25-year lease agreement. Mind you, they call it a license agreement. It renews, so it's not like they can revoke it in that regard. They simply monetize the fact that we are going underneath their tracks. This is something that we really don't interact with frequently, but we have before. Other examples are when we have to put utilities under railroads. Public infrastructure is another one. This is an obvious example as well. We really did not know the price tag until recently. I don't know how they formulate the price, but I don't know. I at least attempted to negotiate, and they didn't bend on that. But again, mind you, it's $8,000 for a 25-year period.
Does the county pay?
No.
What if we don't pay
For
I don't know.
CASA 6, though, does the county?
So, well, in terms of funding the trail itself, we did come to kind of a special agreement where $70,000 was given from Wright County proper to Wright County Fair Board to the city of Howard Lake, which covered most of the expenses associated with this trail.
But you're asking if the county pays a lease agreement for the road? Is that
For
what
the
you're
road,
asking?
yeah, that was my question was,
Yeah.
I mean, does this,
Yeah, I guess I don't know.
you
I can check
know,
into
does it
that.
relate to, is it a,
I know that they're separate entities. I don't know if they pay a lease agreement for a road.
Do we know what Waverly paid for their sidewalk underneath the bridge?
I'm pretty sure they just did that. It's not like I don't want to be held to that, but it's like, so when we designed this trail, This is an actual trail that meets specifications. Like if we want to be considered a trail that links to loose line or what have you,
Right.
like we built it of a certain grade, a certain width, with a certain clearance from that bridge so that you can be on a bike and be safe. I don't know for sure. Do you know? I mean, Sheila represents Waverly. She would have been able to answer this, but I think they just kind of worked that in because I don't think that sidewalk's 2 feet wide.
If I may, Mr. Mayor and Council, I mean, this is very typical of Burlington Northern, what you're seeing before you. I don't see anything irregular. You can't buy or purchase property from the railroad. You can't even get an easement from them. You exist by permit or, in this case, an agreement to have any facility within their property.
Did we ask them what this $9,000 is based on? Is it like inches of trail underneath?
Every inch.
They just pulled it out of the air.
I don't know.
I know.
Short that one.
Mind you, from the time that we submitted approval to the time that we got this license agreement was probably 9 months.
Pretty fast, railroad.
Well, that comes after 2 years of politicking them just so that they would entertain our plans. I mean, it was an
So no rush to get
excruciating.
that check out.
Yeah. Oh, really?
That's what I would say.
I mean, I am kind of tempted to say, what happens if we just don't pay it? I mean, what are they going to do? Make us take the trail out? Or, I guess, sue us because they have more lawyers
Probably
than...
put a fence up.
Yeah, true. I guess that's true. Good point. I didn't think of that. That would be the simple solution. Oh, that's annoying. Can we offer them half?
You can make a motion any way you want,
I
honestly.
mean, it just seems like an exorbitant amount of money for a section of trail that's, what is it? 10
It's
feet
$1
long?
a day,
Yeah, that's
pretty
only
much.
to put it.
Very close to $1 a day.
Oh, when you figure it out over 25 years.
Well, when you put it that way.
It's good math. I don't know.
347 into it.
Do we give any rebuttal of any kind?
I asked where the price came from.
And they
I didn't get a response. I got a similar response to what Josh said of just, we are happy to accommodate your trail, but you pay for the...
Yeah, this is what we do.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, this is the relationship that we have with the railroad on virtually every issue.
I don't think that's unique to Howard Lake.
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all.
Oh, no. But it might be one of those things that you just automatically throw a price tag on it and send it back. Nobody complains,
Right, yeah.
they got their money, but you know, at least a good explanation would be kinda nice.
You could table it.
Well, and
direct
I
me
mean,
to
I
it.
agree, and I'm tempted to go down that path, but I feel like you're basically just kicking the can down the road because eventually they're gonna get what they ask for because they always do.
Is there anything in writing through restoration of, if they have to come in and do any type of restoration on that, on their bridge? Is there anything in there saying that, if we come in and do this, we have the right to just completely, remove that trail altogether and it won't, no longer exist underneath there?
So this agreement permits Howard Lake access. They cannot take it away if you go
For 25 years.
into the agreement. Correct. The thing that's pretty similar to how we handle matters, and we've actually discussed this in very similar ways in other areas of town, if they come in with an infrastructure project that completely rips up the trail, we're still responsible for restoration as that leaseholder. That being said, they have gotten considerably better at being good neighbors in that regard. Like we've seen them in other parts of town where they've actually improved culverts, they've improved the gate systems and that sort of thing that are typically city expenses, because when they're in there and they're doing a project that's massive and it spans from St. Paul to Wyoming or wherever they go, they might as well put in a $1,500 culvert because it's being a good neighbor. I would see this being relatively similar.
And this dollar amount, that's one time over for 25 years, and then where do we come up with the funds for that?
We will have to budget for it.
Okay.
But again, this one's a one-time. There's also insurance that I'm checking into. I suspect, because the optional of an additional $12.55 for insurance coverage, I would be willing to bet that we already have that coverage from the league, or it'd be far
Mhm.
less. So I'm not even considering that as an option.
Nice of them though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well. We'll entertain a motion.
You know how I feel about trails. I'll make a motion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second, any further discussion from the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item F, consider approval of purchase agreement for 925 Sixth Street.
Yes, council, you do have negotiation of real estate transactions. I would recommend that you do so.
That we close.
Mhm.
Do we want to push it to the end then and jump to our last three items, or?
Yeah, you can maneuver.
I only say
that
that
as
because I
you
know
see
that
fit.
John's here and he must be here for something on the agenda that isn't this, so.
The foam bath at Wright County, that event.
So can we do that, or?
He's actually here for this purpose.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
then let's.
But he would have to leave as well. Everyone that's not
Aw.
Aurora and them, you'll come right back, because I actually want you as part of the development agreement, John. But for this part, we'd go into closed session. Mind you, again, for our audience here and at home, the general rules of closed session, we would go into closed session where we'd stop live feed and live tape. We would keep a recording. But beyond that, once we exit the closed session, we would provide a summary of the discussion, as well as any actual action items has to happen in open session.
Right. All right, so we're gonna go into closed session, so.
There you go.
Get out, Kane, get out.
bank,
Right.
but,
Yes.
you know, I was trying to find my site.
It'll all come around.
Did we,
It will. It's
did the press stay back there too, or? Left?
I don't know.
Good riddance, huh?
At this
No.
point, we're stuck anyways.
Yes, we
There's
are.
a guy from the press here. I don't know.
I think he
There's
left.
no
I heard
turning
the door.
back.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so we're back on. We're,
Now with this big news.
we're,
Let's
yeah,
go on.
so we're reopening the meeting from our closed session. I'll just give a quick summary of what was discussed at the closed session. We discussed and the council will consider selling 925 6th Street, the former Auto Choice building, to Munson Lakes Nutrition for the price of $125,000. Contingent upon no changes from staff, no substantive changes from staff. So there was other discussion about project details, but we won't get into that right now. So that's the item on the table. So we will consider a motion. Would someone like to make?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right. There we go.
Mr. Mayor, could I
Yeah.
add one
Sure.
requested motion that I should have included?
An additional motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
You should direct the mayor and administrator to execute the agreement.
All right, we will entertain a motion to direct the mayor and the administrator to execute the agreement.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Item G, consider approval of development agreement with Munson Lakes Nutrition and Land Lakes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we also have plant manager John Zander in the house. Welcome, John. Yeah, so at any point, if you'd like to come up and address on additional points, comments, that sort of thing, please do. And certainly at the end, say anything that you would like, because, you know,
Not anything you'd like, just with,
pertinent.
Pertinent.
It pertains to the project.
be
Yeah.
careful.
But honestly, John, it's been a pleasure working with you over these many years on this very stressful grind of a project. It
John didn't
is-
have any gray hair when this project started.
It's true. It's true. I didn't either. But no, tonight's an exciting night because, as you know, in our previous council action, we approved the sale of the property that corresponds to this development agreement, really to make this project move forward. So it's a long time coming, and we're ready to do it. I'm going to go over the general project summary as well as what you are proposed to agree to with this development agreement between Munson Lakes Nutrition and the City of Howard Lake. So first, in terms of a project summary, Munson Lakes is looking to acquire real estate, 925 6th Street, for the purposes of constructing a new office building to support their mill operations. To date, all necessary planning and zoning has been approved to accommodate the development, as well as the approval of the site plan and the exterior conditions of the building itself. This is part of a tax increment financing district, which essentially allows the city and the developer, in this case Munson Lakes, to capture the increased property value in their taxes to put forward towards the cost of project cost with this development. So again, basically they're looking to freeze the dollar amount that they're paying on taxes in 2018, and the additional increment that's being generated will go back towards this project. That will offset expenses that the city and Munson Lakes has incurred to this project. Again, the property itself will be sold as agreed to for $125,000. There is a tax increment shortfall. So again, what this is Munson Lakes essentially paying for these project costs over a period of years. We're asking them to agree to a minimum assessment value of $650,000. We believe this to be a fair and accurate figure that was determined by the Wright County assessor. At that point, Munson Lakes could not litigate, challenge, or request for that to be lower, and the market can drive it higher. Once the terms of this agreement are satisfied, The agreement itself expires, the TIF district expires, and all terms go away to just general tax payments. We anticipate about $20,000 annually in TIF revenue from this project. Again, I note at the assessment agreement, that's a very important thing because this greatly limits the financial risk from the city. We have money into this project from acquisition, demolition, remediation. With a $650,000 valuation, this guarantees that Munson Lakes will pay their taxes to pay the city back in that regard. And if they don't, there's actually a shortfall agreement between the dollars of taxes paid and the dollar amount that we need to be made whole, which is a pretty standard provision in this. Again, satisfaction or dissolution of this agreement. The TIF district itself, by state statute, allows for, I believe it's 26 full TIF payments or actual tax paying years, which would mean that it would automatically and mandatorily decertify in the year 2046. The other term where this would come in is if they pay back the city the reimbursement rate of what the project costs and expenses that we have into that project. So whatever happens first, the dollar amount or the year. We project that with the funds that the city will have into this project of $218,000, that after 10 years this TIF district would expire, which is consistent with virtually every other TIF district that we have within the city. Again, if that property value goes up, or if they do other improvements on the site that makes the property worth more and therefore they pay more in property taxes, that would actually pay off that reimbursement and make this go away in a lesser amount of time. Legal issues, again, just note that a considerable amount of time and effort has been spent both by the city attorney, Mike Corey, and Mary Ipple, our TIF counsel, and likewise Land O'Lakes, the partner or corporate partner with Munson Lakes, have spent an incredible amount of time on the legal agreements with this project. The language of the development agreement is included for your review. It's heavily redlined. It will be cleaned up consistent with what you see there. I do want to show, just for the sake of, yeah.
I know, like, you made me dizzy.
I want to get to the cool pictures, guys.
How about you, but that building looks a little sideways.
If I can rotate it, maybe. I thought I did too. Well, you're just gonna, I did right click it.
Yeah, but I don't know if we can in the HTML view.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on. I gotta go all the way down again.
We need some music for this.
Myra, sing us something quick.
Maybe I still won't. Unless, hold on, guys. You can get creative and just know what it looks like sideways too if we have to.
I can just do this. Oh, I can't even. We get the gist of it. Okay.
Well, it's exciting because it's a really nice project,
Right.
guys.
I know, well, there you go.
There we go. Yeah, so this would be facing Highway 12, essentially where the building is there. They're proposing higher end materials such as the brick facade and higher roof pitch. Not necessarily to match the bank across the street, but to complement it. Right now we have a pretty impressive structure. This would soften that a little bit.
Oh. It's not going to block the view of the lake or anything, right?
The
Too soon. Too
I-
soon.
I struggled to answer that. Just
Just move on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What this is a 25% brick facade, and EFIS is the remainder. It does have the impression of a 2-story above grade, which is a design preference that we've had in our comprehensive plan. Back here, this is the actual rear of the building, or that would face the site. A lesser design treatment to that, where they would just have the siding itself. And this is what you'd see from County Road 6, just a standard side elevation. It would have an exit to get out to where the trail will ultimately connect. And this will be close to where their current office is located right now.
So that's the main entrance, I assume?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think, yeah, and you've seen this before. This is the site plan, basically a bird's eye view that shows the building, the setback. It will be located off of the intersection for sightline preservation. Again, reiterate it, what we've already approved and seen. The main office is roughly where the main level parking that's coming off of Highway 12. That was another multi-month, many-faceted argument with MnDOT in order to have that egress on and off of Highway 12. Finally got there. Little victories, guys. And this shows the proposed landscaping, which I think they do a nice job with. Green space followed by some shrubbery and so forth around the building itself.
So does the development agreement have like a timeline for the landscaping?
Yeah, so they need to basically break ground, and we can be pretty flexible in what that means.
I was curious.
But I believe it does say December 31st. Talking to RAM, the project contractor on this site, they would actually mobilize 2 weeks after getting the go-ahead. Like, they want to get going on this even now.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah. Well, they're busy. I actually thought that they'd be okay waiting, but they're very excited about this project. They want to get going ASAP. So the development agreement stipulates that they need to essentially break ground by 12/31. They need to have footings in the ground before the TIF comes into play from the city.
Oh.
So we know that the project's actually going to go forward. And then substantial completion, I believe, by 12/31 of 19. So basically they have a year to complete a project. Per any development that we have the ability to enforce landscaping design and that sort of thing. Mind you, they're contractually agreeing to the facade and the landscaping plan in this agreement. I think that's it. John, do you have anything to add?
No, just thank you for your time. I know there's, you pointed it out earlier, the countless hours that the lawyers have played with this agreement to get us to this point. I believe it was 3.5 or how many years ago did we start talking about this?
It's been a while, John.
It's been a while.
I want to look past that.
We're ready. We're ready for it.
Well, it will be nice, I mean, for that big hole in the ground to be gone, but to have, you know, nice building, you know, that represents your business, and just a nicer look along Highway 12, something to offset. I mean, you know, it will be nice to have something that kind of offsets the bank and gives a little more balance to that.
Yeah.
Our current office doesn't do that.
Well, I mean, it's a balance of some type.
So
At what point does demolition take place? I
Of
mean,
their
after
current office?
occupancy, and then at what point does?
Yeah, what are you doing then? What are you doing for the interim?
yeah, so they're going to remain in their current office until the new office is built, and they have already, as part of the construction contract, includes a set aside for demolishing their existing office, which they have
Which
right now.
they're responsible for.
Yeah, they are responsible for. I think that comes in like August of 2019. Because they also, like Munson Lakes needs a parking lot. I mean, it's all pretty well tied together with that. I would like to mention, just because I think we went over some of this in the closed session regarding the property transaction, but again, for the greater community, some of the things that we've been able to accommodate in this project include allowing the right-of-way access for a trail that we've long sought for from Highway 12 to our park, which is a big deal. We accommodate that through this project. We are remediating blighted structure. We're cleaning pretty highly contaminated soil that we've discussed. And ultimately, we believe without the partnership with Munson Lakes, that probably would have remained the case, at least for the foreseeable future. I can tell you, because we deal with this enough, the market does not support this without this sort of partnership where the city picks up some and Munson Lakes picks up some.
And we hope it encourages other projects. I mean,
Absolutely.
I do anyway.
Yep.
Mhm.
No.
Absolutely. And like I also said in
Somebody
that
has to
talking
really-
point of actual linear footage of our downtown, this reshapes about 30% of that north side of Highway 12 in our downtown district. Like, that's a big deal to us. So again, tonight, we're looking for council to approve the development agreement. Again, that would be substantive to non-substantive changes, and direct the mayor and council to execute the agreement.
It's weird, I feel like we've already approved this, but, I mean, we haven't. We've just talked about it a million times. All right, well, we'll entertain a motion, council.
I'll make the motion.
We have a
to
motion?
Authorize
Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
the mayor and the clerk to execute the agreement.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for being here, John.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Go build a building now.
Yeah.
Soon. We want to get started right away.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, so we have two items that were pulled off the consent agenda on the regular, or out of new business. So the first one is consider approving the special event permit for Wright County Fairgrounds, right?
Yep.
I forgot already what they are.
Yep,
Mark.
so we were approached by a company originally requesting a temporary liquor license, but we cannot issue temporary liquor licenses to private companies. We can only do that for nonprofits. And so
Oh.
they, this group, I forget what they're called, Sandy's Photo Booth and Entertainment, has actually worked with the Wright County Fair Board and has secured their approval both to use the property, and then they've gotten a vendor to provide food and beer for
Oh.
this event. So we are not being asked to provide a temporary liquor license. However, because they are looking to have a music and foam party, that involves loud noise after what you could refer to as our quiet hours. So they're proposing music to last, I believe, until 11, and ours stops it at 10. So they're looking for an additional hour out at the fairgrounds than what our ordinance typically allows. So that's why they've approached the council for a special event permit to say that that they're allowed to go that extra hour.
This
Good Neighbor Days weekend?
Right?
Or
June 29th?
it typically was the weekend before that, but I know we've had where it's been after.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to look, but I thought.
Oh,
it
you're
was
right.
the
It
weekend
probably is
before.
the week before.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It's always around Heather's birthday. Her birthday's the
Yeah.
25th, so that's the only reason I know that.
Yep.
Right.
So, Mr. Munson, you requested that this be
Yeah.
pulled from.
Yeah, do you have any
Well,
questions?
I'm curious about the liquor license. Who's really, is that go to the fair board then?
No, so they are working with a catering company and they have their own license.
They have their own.
Yep.
Okay. I see.
Yep.
This is a private event, then?
I can't imagine that it would be, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's not really our place to ask necessarily. But the one thing that we will follow up on in the past, because this is not new to us, we've seen
Yep.
other ancillary
Mhm.
activities at Wright County Fair. In fact, I
Mm.
think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
To be honest, we will check in with them in terms of the number of attendees,
Yep.
if they need special coverage for police.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
Little things like that. And we've also helped with traffic control. And knock on wood, almost always they want that sort of help and assistance, and we
Yep.
provide it, but it also comes at a nominal cost, so we're not actually out expenses.
What is a foam party?
It's exactly what it sounds like, Gene. They
There's gonna be-
have foam everywhere. Think like,
Really?
Like
yeah.
bubbles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
thinking, is that what it is? And I'm
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
obviously I haven't been to one of those,
Oh, come on.
Yep.
but there's always a first time.
You're
I
right
think
across
Gene's
the
fishing for an
street.
invite. I don't know.
But I will say, I mean, this group obviously has their ducks in a row. I mean, they figured out a way to get a liquor license. They came to us
Yeah.
well in
Yeah.
advance
I was gonna
of
say,
the event.
it's-
Yeah. this is
They wanted to already
very good.
secure that they're allowed to do this and they can run all their promotional materials well in advance.
So,
of the event.
from our perspective, it's just a special event permit. I mean, we're not,
Yep,
it's
exactly.
not like
Right.
we're looking
Exactly.
for insurance or.
You're
you know.
essentially allowing 1 hour additional of
Yep.
loud music.
Yep.
And again, I know we're early
I
on.
mean, an hour and a half.
It's not footloose.
11:30.
We can probably.
So that's when they're proposing that everyone will probably be off the party, but music stops at 11.
Yeah. And while it's kind of early to say, I mean, this is the kind of thing that you guys were talking about just recently with council goal setting. I mean, this is activity that's fun,
Mhm.
different in Howard Lake. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
it's worth a shot.
Right.
Really, we're out nothing except an hour of music.
Yep.
All right.
You can listen to music.
Your house?
Yeah, we hear real good open air.
The after phone parties at your house? Oh.
I'll add that to the minutes.
All right, well, we'll entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the other consent item that we pulled was consider resolution 18-30 waiving
Yep.
special assessments, right?
Yep.
Oh, got it. Yes, this is a request for the waiving of special assessments in churning trails. It would be consistent with previous requests that we've permitted to Paxmar Homes as well as to Mid-Minnesota Hot Mix. The properties that you're requesting here are the last 6 that have not requested it. As you recall, when we moved forward with this development about a year ago, we considered this at that time, and we also considered approving a blanket waive of all the properties. At least at that time, council was agreeable to doing so, but under the advisement of our city attorney, we were told to wait until we actually received the request. So at this point, we've received the request from, I think it's Gold Leaf LLC. They're a builder out of Annandale. They were quasi engaged with this several years ago when the development went belly up initially, and now they're looking to actually build some homes. We have actually received the first building permit through this. One's been pre-sold, and they anticipate building 1 or 2 more yet this fall or winter, and they would build out the remainder in a progressive
Fall
manner.
is gone, long gone. Winter is,
Yeah.
that's up to it.
I'm trying to be optimistic, Al, because we have an office building to build. And,
You're kind of stretching.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions,
All right.
Al? You were. Oh, you just-
I guess, yeah, I was wondering if we had intended when we removed or sold to Paxmar, or
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
accepted the reduction in assessments to them, if we were gonna carry that through with everything.
Yeah, again, I think at
all
least at that
property
time,
out there.
yeah, I think that was the intention. And the good part of this is, I mean, if that's the right term to use, the properties that we're talking about tonight have a much smaller assessment.
Mm.
They were assessed based on the amount of improvements that were remaining at the time that the development went bankrupt.
Mm.
And in the case of these particular properties, it was really the final lift of asphalt that went in front of their house. And looking back at old meeting minutes, for example, there was actual debate between contractors and the developer and the council at that time of even assessing these properties at all. Because one, there were contractors that took payment in the form of properties because they weren't getting paid for the work they already did. And the second portion was, typically speaking, Howard Lake has a no assessment policy for road projects. So these 6 properties are being assessed for the asphalt only, and that was the subject of the debate at the time, and that's what they're being asked to waive now.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right. Well, then we will entertain a motion to. Okay, go ahead.
How's that?
That, perfect. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, there is no old business. I feel like some of this was old business. But, administrator's report, we just have a list of upcoming meetings. We don't need to go through those, I don't think, unless there's something.
The one reminder that I'll make both with you, but again for public record, goal setting next Monday. And we do have the last meeting of the year scheduled for December 4th.
Yeah,
I
correct.
believe.
So it's much earlier.
Also
Yep.
early.
Mhm.
And then, at least with any luck, that will be our winter recess where we will be off from December 4th until your first meeting in 2019.
Oh. Stay in touch.
We missed you all.
All right, so item M, will someone make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second, any further discussion from the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
We do have a workshop, guys. Can